Welcome to The Explainer. Let's start with a big idea. What if the life you're living right now wasn't just happening to you, but was actually designed by you? Today, we're diving into this powerful concept from our source material, the idea that you are the architect of your own life, and your thoughts, well, they're the blueprint. So let's kick things off with a pretty provocative question. We usually think of our thoughts as these private, fleeting things happening inside our heads. But what if they had a real physical influence on the world? What if they were a force as tangible as electricity? Our source material actually digs into research suggesting this isn't just science fiction. All right, so our first section is all about exploring this unseen power. We're going to try and understand how our thoughts aren't just passing clouds, but maybe the very force that's shaping our reality. Now, this requires a pretty major shift in perspective. The conventional view is that thoughts are passive, they just happen. But the source material, it proposes this radical alternative. Our thoughts are an active energy, a force that radiates out from us and influences the world around us. And this isn't some new age fad. Philosophers have been arguing about this for centuries. The source really emphasizes this idea that your outer world is just a mirror of your inner one. So whatever you're consistently holding in your mind, whether it's success, failure, joy, or sorrow, that is what you're going to see reflected back at you in your life. People took this idea so seriously that researchers actually explored its furthest implications. They started wondering, okay, if thoughts can shape our own world, could they maybe influence others too? In his book, Mental Radio, a guy named Dr. Upton Sinclair investigated whether our minds could literally broadcast ideas from a distance, a concept we all know as telepathy. So here's the core idea of how this works. Your mind acts like a powerful magnet, and the quality of your dominant thoughts, the stuff you think about all the time, determines what you attract. If you consistently think thoughts of prosperity, you start pulling in opportunities. But if you dwell on negativity, you end up drawing those very circumstances into your life. So this mental blueprint that we're all creating, it can lead us down two very different paths. And the source makes it really clear that these outcomes, they're not determined by luck. They're determined by the quality of our thoughts. Shakespeare just captured this perfectly, didn't he? Our reality isn't just about what happens to us, it's about how our thoughts frame those events. The exact same situation can feel like a crushing defeat or a valuable lesson, and the only difference is the thoughts we choose to have about it. This really shows a profound disconnect, doesn't it? External success means absolutely nothing if the internal architecture, your mind, is flawed. I mean, think about Alexander the Great, Napoleon, or Dr. Swift. These guys had immense power and wealth, but their inner worlds were so consumed by negative thoughts that they actually built lives of misery. But a faulty blueprint isn't always about being negative or malicious. Sometimes it's just ungrounded. It's the mind that's lost in aimless fantasy, which, as the famous story of Sheik Chili shows, ultimately builds nothing at all. Our source uses the classic tale of Sheik Chili to really drive this point home. He starts with a super simple plan. Go to the market and sell a pot of honey. Easy enough, right? But on the way, his imagination just runs wild. He starts daydreaming about using the money to buy more stuff, then a shop, then a grand palace. He literally constructs this entire fantasy of unbelievable luxury, all in his mind. And then, lost in this incredibly vivid daydream, he makes some grand gesture, and the pot of honey smashes on the ground. The very foundation of his entire fantasy is gone in an instant. His dream collapses because it was never connected to action or reality. And this brings us to a really critical distinction our source makes, the huge difference between that kind of useless daydreaming and purposeful creative imagination. Yeah, this distinction is absolutely critical. One is basically a mental escape. It's a way to avoid the present. The other is the disciplined process of actually creating something. Useless daydreaming just eats up your mental energy. Creative imagination directs it. Real creation, it follows a clear, structured path. It always begins with an idea, right? That creative spark. But it can't stop there. That idea has to be shaped into a plan, a real blueprint. Then that plan requires effort, real-world action. And only then does it result in creation. Imagination is just step one. Think about it. Every single great human achievement you can think of, from a skyscraper to a symphony, from a rocket ship to a novel, it first existed as a structured, purposeful idea in someone's creative imagination. That was the blueprint. The takeaway here is just incredibly empowering. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. What that means is your present life is the sum of your past thoughts. But even more importantly, by mastering your thoughts today, you're actively designing the future you will live in tomorrow. So if our thoughts are really this powerful, how do we manage them? How do we make sure we're building a masterpiece and not, a total ruin? The source introduces a master concept to guide us: Vivek. So this master concept is called Vivek. You can think of it as your inner wisdom, or maybe the master architect of your mind. It's the part of you that looks at all the raw materials you have, your emotions, your tendencies, your thoughts, and decides which ones to build with, which to throw away, and how to use them to get the job done right. And here's how Vivek works in practice. No emotion is inherently bad. Take anger. Without wisdom, it's just destructive rage. But when it's guided by wisdom, it becomes the righteous force you might need for self-defense. Humor can be cruel mockery, or it can be a tool for spreading joy. It's wisdom that determines whether a tool builds or breaks. Our source gives us this really powerful example from history. In the Mahabharata, Draupadi used the tool of humor at exactly the wrong time, aimed at exactly the wrong person. This one act, a virtue applied without wisdom, set off a chain reaction that led to a catastrophic war. It's just a stark reminder of how even good tools can cause a total disaster if you don't have Vivek to guide them. And that's where we'll end. The source material really lays it all out for us. The power is yours. The tools are right there in your mind. The blueprint is being drawn right now, with every single thought you choose. So the only question left is, what are you going to build?